Most people lose at gold prospecting before they ever touch the water. Not because they pan wrong, not because they missed a perfect trap, but because they picked the wrong creek in the first place. And here's the uncomfortable truth. A lot of creeks can look goldy and still have no real gold system behind them. They have pretty gravel, nice bends, clean water, even black sand sometimes. But no source, no history, no reason. So you end up doing what most beginners do. You work hard in a creek that was never going to pay you back. This video is about preventing that, because the smartest prospectors don't start with a pan. They start with a question. Does this creek have a reason to contain gold? Not hope, not vibes, a reason. The core idea. You're not choosing a creek, you're choosing a system. Gold in a creek is not a random gift. It's a chain of events. Gold has to exist in the rock somewhere upstream. It has to be released by erosion and time. It has to be transported by water. It has to be trapped and concentrated. If any one of those links is missing, the creek might still be beautiful. But it's not a gold creek, so when you pick a creek before you go, you're really looking for proof of those 4 links. And the best part? You can check a lot of that from home. The biggest mistake? Choosing water first, geology second. Most people start like this. Where can I access a creek? Where can I park? Where is it easy to pan? That's backwards. Because easy access creeks often exist for one reason. They're near towns, near roads, near people. Which usually means they've been tested, cleaned out, or overworked. But even worse than pressure is this. If the geology upstream doesn't support gold, access doesn't matter. You're just panning in a place that can't produce. So the right order is geology first, history second, creek shape third, access last. That's how you avoid wasting entire weekends. Filter number 1. Is there a real gold source upstream? This is the question most people avoid because it feels too technical. But it's not as complicated as it sounds. You don't need to be a geologist. You just need to understand one thing. Gold doesn't appear because water is present. Gold appears because the rocks upstream can produce it. So what counts as a credible upstream source? Known gold districts in the region, old mining reports or documented placer activity, hard rock mineralization upstream, veins, shear zones, altered rock. Bedrock types that commonly host gold in your area. And here's the brutal rule. If you can't find any record that gold exists in that drainage region, your odds drop fast. Not to 0, but to you're gambling, not prospecting. Filter number 2. Does the creek have enough energy to move and sort gold? Gold is heavy. So small, weak creeks often can't transport it far. They might carry sand, but not heavy material consistently. You want a creek that has a history of seasonal high-flow, strong runoff events, enough gradient to move coarse gravel at least sometimes. Because that tells you the creek can do the work that matters. Break material loose. Move it. Sort it. Concentrate it. No energy means no sorting. No sorting means no concentration. And without concentration, gold stays microscopic and scattered. Filter number 3. Does the creek have places where gold can actually stay? Even if gold exists upstream and gets transported, it still needs to be trapped. Some creeks are basically conveyor belts that never let heavies settle. So when you're choosing a creek from home, you look for structure that creates repeating slow zones and stable material, bends that repeat over distance narrowing and widening sections, step pools or natural drops exposed bedrock reaches areas where the creek cuts down into older gravels. You're not trying to pinpoint the spot yet. You're choosing a creek that has enough structure to create multiple trapping opportunities. Because one lucky trap is not a plan. A repeating pattern is. The mindset that saves you time. Here's the shift. Don't ask, where can I pan? Ask, where does it make sense for gold to exist, move, and stay? That question eliminates most creeks immediately. And that's exactly what you want. Because the goal isn't to find a creek. The goal is to find a creek that can reward effort. Before you drive anywhere, you need a filter. Not a, maybe this looks good filter. A real system that lets you look at a map, look at a name, look at a region, and decide, this creek has a reason to pay. This one doesn't, because the truth is simple. Most creeks are innocent. They've never touched gold. So if you don't screen first, you're not prospecting, you're touring. Step 1. Start with proof, not rumors. The internet is full of gold spots. Most of them are recycled stories, so your first rule is, a creek is not gold-bearing because someone said so. A creek is gold-bearing because there's evidence of gold in that drainage. What counts as evidence? Documented placer occurrences, historical mining activity in the same watershed or nearby known gold districts in the region, repeated mentions across credible sources, not one random post. If a creek has only one loud claim and no supporting context, treat it as entertainment. You're not looking for hype. You're looking for patterns that keep repeating across time. Step 2. The upstream anchor. Check. Even if a region is gold-bearing, not every creek inside it is equal. So you ask the most important upstream question. What sits above this creek? Because a creek is basically a drain. It collects whatever the slopes, ridges, and bedrock above it produce. If the upstream area is mostly soft sediment, flat farmland, or young deposits with no mineralization, that creek may be clean, pretty, and completely goldless. But if the upstream area cuts into older rocks, hard bedrock, and mineralized zones, now the creek has an upstream anchor. This is what you want. A drainage that intersects bedrock that can actually host gold. No anchor means no source. No source means no point. Step 3. Eliminate too small and too gentle creeks. This part is where people get emotional because small creeks feel manageable. But here's the problem. Gold is heavy. A tiny creek might carry sand and small pebbles, but it often can't move and sort heavy material consistently. So you screen for energy. You want evidence the creek has had enough power to? Transport coarse gravel, sometimes cut into banks or bedrock. Rework material during storms or seasonal melt. If a creek is mostly stagnant pools, soft mud, and uniform fine sand, it might be a peaceful place to camp. But it's not a reliable placer system. Small creeks can have gold, but they need steep gradients and seasonal force to make it worth it. Step 4. Look for structure density, not one perfect feature. Most people hunt for one magic marker, one bend, one gravel bar, one nice-looking spot. That's not how you choose a creek. You choose a creek by asking, does it have repeated structure? Because repeated structure means repeated opportunities for concentration. What does that look like from above? Multiple bends close together, alternating narrow and wide sections, frequent riffle pool sequences, exposed bedrock runs, terraces, and old channels near the modern creek. If the creek looks like a smooth line with uniform width for miles, it may run fast, but it may not create stable traps. You want complexity. You want a creek that forces water to change behavior again and again. That's how you get concentration, not just transport. Step 5. Identify red flags that waste your time. A few red flags show up over and over, easy access everywhere and lots of footpaths along the banks. Obvious public panning spots with constant traffic heavily dredged or disturbed, streambed uniform fine sand with little coarse gravel in the system. Steep canyon with no place for material to settle and build layers. A creek can still produce in pressured areas, but your odds drop and your effort rises. So if you're choosing between two creeks, pick the one with less obvious pressure. Gold doesn't care about convenience. People do, and people change creeks faster than nature can reload them. Step 6. The final home test, the 2-point sanity check. Before you commit, you want 2 confirmations. The region has credible gold history or documented occurrences. The creek shows enough energy and structure to concentrate heavies. If you have only one of those, you're guessing. History without structure means the gold may exist, but not concentrate well there. Structure without history means the creek can trap weight, but might trap nothing valuable. You want both. That's when the trip is worth it. What this screening method actually does. It doesn't guarantee gold, nothing does, but it stops you from making the worst mistake in prospecting, working hard in a creek that never had a chance. Because once you narrow down to 2 good candidates, your time in the field becomes meaningful. You stop wandering, you start testing with intention, and that's where results begin. Once you've screened out the obvious bad choices, you'll usually end up with a short list. Maybe 5 creeks, maybe 3. This is where most people still mess up. They pick the one that looks nicest, or the one closest to the road, or the one with the best photos online. But you're not choosing a sightseeing route, you're ranking creeks by probability. So you need a simple concept, signal stacking. 1 signal can be misleading, 2 signals can still be coincidence. But when multiple independent signals line up in the same drainage, your odds start to become real. What a signal is anything that increases the probability a creek holds recoverable gold. Not, it looks rocky, not, it feels right. A signal is evidence tied to source, transport, concentration, persistence. You want signals that come from different categories so they confirm each other. The 4-signal stack, use this to rank any creek. Signal 1, regional credibility. Has the region produced gold before? This can include documented placer activity, mining history, or known gold districts. If the region has no gold credibility, everything else is a long shot. Signal 2, drainage intersects the right ground. Does the watershed cut through bedrock that could host gold? A creek is only as good as what it drains. If the upstream terrain is mostly young sediments or non-mineralized rock, it may be clean, but not productive. Signal 3, enough energy to move and sort heavies. Does the creek have slope, seasonal flow, or storm power? Gold needs energy to be liberated, transported, and sorted. Weak transport systems might still contain gold, but they often won't concentrate it into recoverable zones. Signal 4, structure density that creates repeated traps. Does the creek force water to change speed and behavior often? Multiple bends, constrictions, step pools, bedrock reaches, terraces. These create opportunities for heavies to settle and stay. A feature-rich creek gives you more chances per hour of work. Scoring method, simple, brutal, effective. Give each signal a score from 0 to 2. 0 equals no evidence. 1 equals some evidence / uncertain. 2 equals strong evidence. Total score, 0 to 8. 0 to 3, low priority, only for learning or quick testing. 4 to 5, medium, worth a short scout day. 6 to 8, high priority, worth committing real time. This does 2 things. It forces you to think like a prospector, and it removes emotion from the choice. Because emotion loves pretty creeks. Probability loves evidence. The tiebreakers that decide between top creeks. If 2 creeks score similarly, use tiebreakers. Tiebreaker 1, less human pressure. The fewer people work it, the less stripped it is. You don't need untouched wilderness. You need less obvious traffic. Tiebreaker 2, more access points to different sections. This sounds like convenience, but it's strategy. Multiple entry points mean you can test multiple zones quickly. It lets you confirm whether gold signals repeat along the creek or only show up in one small stretch. Tiebreaker 3, multiple sediment environments. A creek with only one type of stream bed is limited. A creek with alternating environments gives you options. Gravel bars, bedrock runs, tight chutes, wide flats, old terrace gravels. More environments means more ways to concentrate gold. The biggest ranking mistake, trusting one famous spot. A creek might have one well-known panning area. That doesn't mean the whole creek is good. Sometimes it means the opposite. One section pays, the rest is dead. So your ranking should never be based on a single point of fame. Your ranking should be based on the drainage as a system. If the system is credible, multiple sections will show potential. If it's not, you'll keep circling one little tourist pocket forever. What you should have at the end of part 3. By the end of this process, you should have 1 top creek, best evidence stack, 1 backup creek, second best stack, 1 learning creek, easy quick test, low commitment. That's a plan. And that plan prevents the worst prospecting habit: driving somewhere with no decision framework, then letting the scenery decide how you spend your day. Why this works even when you don't find gold immediately? Because it's not just about finding gold today, it's about building a repeatable process. If you rank creeks this way, two things happen. You waste fewer trips, and you learn faster because your testing is happening in systems that actually make sense. That's how you stop feeling unlucky. Luck still exists, but your choices stop depending on it. You've picked a creek. Now comes the moment that traps most people. They arrive, and they immediately start believing. The water looks good. The gravel looks right. The bend looks perfect. So they commit emotionally before they collect evidence. That's how you waste a full day, because your first job on site is not to find gold. Your first job is to answer one question as fast as possible. Is this creek worth staying on today? This part is the 1-hour confirmation system. No romance, no wandering, just proof. Rule number 1, don't start at the prettiest spot. The prettiest spot is usually closest to parking. Most obvious, most tested, most misleading. Instead, your first test should be chosen for one reason. They're likely to answer the big question quickly. So you want access to a section that has some structure, bends, constrictions, obstacles, some gravel movement, some chance of concentration zones, not because it looks cinematic, because it's information rich. Rule number 2, your first 3 pans are not gold pans. They're diagnostic pans. Most people pan like this. They hope for yellow. You pan like this. You're reading the concentrate as a report. Your first 3 pans should be designed to test 3 different conditions: a likely concentration point, inside bend or behind an obstacle; a control point nearby, a less obvious section; a deeper or more stable layer, down to compact material if possible. You're not searching randomly. You're comparing behavior, because a creek that can pay will usually show a consistent, heavy material story across those tests. What you're actually looking for in the first hour. You're not demanding gold instantly. You're looking for indicators that gold could be present and recoverable. Your first hour checklist is simple. Are heavies present at all? Do heavies increase in the right places? Do heavies increase with depth? Does the material show signs of sorting, not just mixed chaos? Do you see any repeating pattern as you move short distances? If everything is light, uniform, and unsorted across multiple tests, that creek might still have gold. But it's not acting like a concentrating system. And you came here to find concentration, not to pan for hope. The 20-step move test. This is one of the fastest reality checks. After your first pan, move roughly 10 to 20 meters and take another sample in a slightly different microzone. Then compare. If the concentrates are basically identical everywhere, light and boring, that's a bad sign. But if the concentrates change dramatically based on microlocation, that means the creek is sorting material. Sorting is the doorway. Gold only becomes practical after sorting exists. Don't get tricked by surface material. Surface gravel is the loudest liar in prospecting. It changes constantly. It gets remixed. It gets reworked. So if you only sample the surface, your results can swing wildly for the wrong reasons. In your first hour, you should make at least one sample that reaches the bottom of the active gravel, a compact layer, something stable that doesn't move easily. If heavies appear and strengthen as you get closer to a stable layer, that's the creek telling you. This is where weight settles and stays. That matters even if gold isn't visible yet. The stay or leave decision rule. After roughly an hour, 3 to 6 quick tests, you make a decision. You don't negotiate with the creek. You decide based on evidence. Stay if you see heavies showing up in the right microzones. Stronger concentrates near stable layers, repeated structure producing repeated heavy behavior. Leave or downgrade the creek if concentrates are consistently light everywhere. No location seems to hold heavies better than others. The creek material looks constantly churned and unsorted. Every test feels identical no matter where you sample. This doesn't mean there is no gold. It means you haven't found a concentrating story quickly enough to justify the day. A good prospector protects time more than anything. The hardest skill, not falling in love with a location. A creek can be beautiful and useless. A creek can be ugly and productive. If you can't detach, you'll always lose. So treat your first hour like a job. Collect evidence, compare, decide. Because if the creek is real, you'll know fast. And if it isn't, walking away early is not failure, it's professionalism. What happens next when the creek passes the test? If the creek passes the first hour confirmation, then you shift modes. You stop scouting and start mapping. You identify the repeating zone that creates the best concentrates, and you work that zone systematically instead of wandering. If the creek passed your first hour test, congratulations. But this is where most people still fail. They get one decent pan, and then they start drifting. They chase the next pretty spot. They bounce from bend to bend. They dig wherever feels exciting, and by the end of the day, they've done a lot of work, with no clear answer about what the creek is actually doing. So part 5 is the shift from scouting to mapping. Because once a creek shows potential, your goal changes. You are no longer trying to find gold. You are trying to locate the pay zone, the stretch where the system concentrates heavies most consistently. The pay zone is usually a stretch, not a point beginners think in points. This spot pays. Prospectors think in zones. This section of the creek repeats the right behavior. That matters because pay isn't always a single trap. Pay is often a series of traps formed by the same controlling features. Gradient change, a bedrock reach, a repeating bend sequence, a constriction that forces energy shifts, a stable section that builds layers over time. Your job is to find where that control begins and where it ends. Step 1. Pick one reference trap and lock it in. Choose the best trap you've tested so far, your strongest concentrate. That becomes your reference point, not emotionally, technically, because everything you do next is compared to that. You're building a map of intensity, stronger than reference, similar to reference, weaker than reference. This keeps you from lying to yourself, because without a reference, every pan feels maybe good. With a reference, the creek starts to speak clearly. Step 2. Run a simple upstream/downstream bracket. From your reference point, you run a bracket test. One sample upstream, one sample downstream, not far. Enough to test the same style of trap in the next microzone. Then you compare concentrates. If upstream is stronger, your pay zone likely extends that way. If downstream is stronger, follow that direction. If both are weaker, your reference might be near the center of the pay zone. This is how you stop wandering. You're not exploring randomly. You're tightening a search pattern. Step 3. The tightening loop method. Once you know the stronger direction, you repeat the bracket again. Move in the stronger direction, take another test, and compare. Your goal is to locate two boundaries, where results start getting strong, where results start dropping off. That gives you the pay zone length. And once you have that length, you can stop guessing where to spend the day. Step 4. Don't chase new trap types. Repeat the same trap type. This is a major mistake people make. They find good concentrates in one trap type, then immediately test a completely different environment, from a bend to a wide flat, from a boulder pocket to loose bar gravel, from bedrock to deep sand. That confuses your data. When mapping, you want consistency. Repeat the same trap type while you move. If your reference was inside bend gravel at the bottom layer, then your bracket test should be the same. Same depth, same material class, same style of microzone. Otherwise, you're comparing apples to chaos. Step 5. Make the creek prove repetition. A real pay zone repeats, not perfectly, but clearly. So you're looking for this pattern. Good heavies show up again and again in the same stretch, under similar conditions. If you only get one good pan and everything else collapses, that's not a zone. That's a pocket. Pockets can be fun. Zones are how you build a reliable spot list, the 2 strong points rule. Here's a quick standard that keeps you honest. Before you commit a full day to a creek, you want at least 2 strong points within the same stretch. Not 1. 2. Because 1 can be random. 2 suggests a system, and once you have 2, you can start searching for what connects them. What's the controlling feature? Is it a gradient change, a bedrock run, a constriction, an old channel edge? That's how you stop being a visitor and start being a reader. Step 6. Choose your work target for the day. After mapping, you should be able to say, this is the best 30 to 100 meters of this creek. That's your work target. And here's the logic. If the creek can pay, it will pay most consistently in its strongest zone. So instead of spreading your effort thin, you focus. You work that zone deeper, more carefully, and more systematically. This is where time turns into results. What you should have after Part 5. By now, you should have a reference trap, a confirmed direction of strength, rough boundaries of the pay zone, at least 2 strong points that repeat a defined stretch to work, not a random spot. That is the difference between I tried this creek and I understand this creek. And once you understand the creek, you can return with a plan instead of hope. Once you've mapped a pay zone, the game changes again. Now you're not exploring, you're executing. And the goal of a full day is not just find some gold. The goal is to leave with answers you can reuse. What layer holds the heavies best? What trap type produces most consistently here? How does the creek change across the pay zone? Is this worth coming back to? Most people leave with a handful of pans and a vague feeling. You want to leave with a field report. Rule number 1. Work in blocks, not impulses. A full day gets wasted when you keep switching tasks. Dig a little here, pan there, walk around, test something else, then back again. So, you work in blocks. Block A, confirm depth and layer. Block B, expand to similar traps. Block C, decide stay/return/abandon. This keeps your brain from turning the day into random motion. Block A, find the best layer first. Before you chase more locations, you must answer one question. Where is the gold most likely to be concentrated in this zone? That usually means testing by depth at your best reference point. Surface material mid-layer bottom of active gravel, right on the stable layer. Bedrock/compact/hard layer. You're looking for the layer where heavies increase sharply and repeat. When you find that, you stop wasting time on weak layers because panning the wrong layer all day feels like bad luck. It's not luck, it's wrong sampling. Block B, expand sideways but only inside the pay zone. Once you know the best layer, you spread your testing across the pay zone, but you do it in a controlled way. Pick 2 or 3 additional spots inside that stretch. Same trap type, same depth, same layer. Then compare concentrates. If they match your reference strength, the zone is real. If they drop off sharply, your zone is narrower than you thought. This is where you locate the hot core. Most pay zones have a center that outperforms the edges. Your job is to find that center. Block C, turn results into a decision. By late day, you should be able to decide one of 3 outcomes. Return worthy. The creek shows consistent heavy concentration and repeatable patterns. Scout only. Interesting, but inconsistent. Good for learning, not for commitment. Walk away. No stable pattern, no repeat, not worth more time. That decision is the real value, because prospecting isn't just digging. It's building a list of locations you understand. The log system that makes you improve fast. Here's what most people skip. They don't write anything down, so every trip resets their learning to 0. Your field log can be simple. Just record 4 things per test. Location note, upstream/downstream of reference, bend/boulder/run. Depth/layer, surface, mid, bottom on stable layer. Concentrate strength, light/medium/heavy. Any visible gold, none specks, flakes. That's it. Because later, when you plan the next trip, you'll know where to start, what layer to target, what to ignore. That's how you become consistent. The don't chase the dream pan rule. Some days you'll hit a pan that looks amazing. Heavies pack up, a couple of tiny specks show, and your brain wants to do one thing. Commit emotionally and dig only there. That's dangerous, because one pan can be a pocket. So you use the rule. Anytime you get a strong pan, you must reproduce it within the zone. If you can reproduce it, it's a system. If you can't, it's a story. Stories waste time. Systems build results. What to do if you find only tiny gold? This is common, and it's where people quit too early. Tiny gold can still mean the creek is real, but you must answer, is the tiny gold increasing with depth? Is it consistent across the zone? Is it appearing in stable trap layers? If yes, then the creek might be a fine gold system. And fine gold systems often reward patience and technique more than luck. But if tiny gold appears once and never again, don't hallucinate a pay streak. Confirm or move on. How to end the day like a pro. Before you leave, do one final check. Return to your reference point and take one more controlled sample. Same depth, same layer. If it still performs, your data is stable. If it collapses, something changed. Or your earlier sampling wasn't consistent. Either way, you leave with clarity. And clarity is the whole point. Because the next time you come back, you won't start from scratch. You'll start from proof. Most people treat prospecting like a single-day event. They show up, they try, they leave, and next weekend they start over somewhere else. That cycle keeps you busy, but it doesn't make you better. Because real success comes from something simpler. Building a short list of creeks you understand. Not creeks you've visited, creeks you've proven. So, part 7 is the final step. How to decide what a creek really is and what you should do next. The 3 outcomes every creek must earn. Every creek you test should end up in one of 3 categories. No exceptions. Category 1. Return creek. This is a creek that earned your time. You return when you have. Repeatable strong, concentrates in the pay zone, a best layer you can consistently reach at least 2 strong points that confirm a system. Evidence the creek has structure that reloads and holds heavies. Return creeks don't need to be rich every pan. They need to be consistent enough that your next trip starts with confidence. Category 2. Learning creek. This is a creek that teaches you but doesn't reward commitment. You keep it for technique practice. Quick half-day tests refining your reading skills, experimenting with different methods. Learning creeks are valuable because they build your skill without the pressure of making it pay. But you don't invest deep labor there. Category 3. Drop creek. This is a creek you stop feeding with your time. You drop it when concentrates are consistently light and unsorted. Strong results don't reproduce the creek shows no stable layer or persistent traps. The system feels random across multiple tests. Dropping a creek is not quitting, it's protecting your future weekends. The return trigger. What must be true before you come back? Before a creek earns a second trip, it should pass at least 2 of these triggers. You can reproduce a strong concentrate in the same zone. Heavies increase with depth toward a stable layer. The pay zone has a clear boundary you can map. You found at least one location that still performs after you leave and retest it. The creek's behavior makes sense with your at-home screening. If you can't name why you're returning for feelings. Feelings burn fuel. Evidence builds results. The quit trigger. When to stop wasting time midday? Sometimes you arrive with hope, but the creek refuses to cooperate. You don't fight it. You quit early when you see no heavies across multiple trap types, no change in concentrates after moving short distances, no stronger layer as you dig deeper. The creek bed is constantly remixed and unstable everywhere you test. If you've given the creek honest tests and the evidence stays flat, leaving is the smartest move. A pro doesn't tough it out in dead ground. A pro reroutes effort. How to build your personal Gold Creek list. This is how you stop restarting from zero. Make a simple list with 3 lines per creek. Best access point / section. Where to begin next time. Best layer, surface versus bottom versus stable layer. Best trap type, what repeatedly worked. Then add one final note. What would prove it's better or worse next trip? That one question makes every future trip smarter. Because now you're not just prospecting, you're running a long-term process. The mistake that keeps people poor: chasing novelty new creeks are exciting. They feel like opportunity. But novelty is not strategy. A creek you understand will beat a mystery creek almost every time, because you know where to start and what to ignore. The best prospectors don't have endless spots. They have a small number of proven waters and a method for testing new ones efficiently. That's the real advantage. Not secret locations, not expensive gear, a proven list. The final mindset: you're buying information, not gold. Here's the truth: some trips won't produce gold, but every trip can produce information. If you log it correctly, even a bad day upgrades your future decisions. And over time, you'll notice something. Your list gets shorter, your starting accuracy improves, and your results stop feeling like luck. Because you stop choosing creeks based on hope. You choose them based on proof,